Today we're going to change the seal on this piece of rear boot chrome. Now the chrome itself is in 3 parts, and when you take it off there are 4 bolts on the back. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Just slots in there like that. But remember, you need to take the centerpiece off first. We're just going to replace the seal on here. This car is serviceable just about, but it's got broken bits at the end, and we've gone to the trouble and the expense of buying a new seal from the SL part shop, which costs £49. It's going to be considerably easier to fit, not least because it's still rubbery and elastic. But this seal here was never fitted properly, and the consequence is that some of it has been squashed down. So we're going to fit this onto the chrome first and then screw the whole thing together. To do this job properly, and to make sure that the seal is seated properly in this piece of chrome, you're going to have to take the back light out with the screwdriver and actually make sure that that seal is on the outside of the chrome. Boot chrome, if you haven't got this seal seated properly, it just starts to corrode from the inside out basically. And a good example is just here where you can see the chrome bubbling, and it's basically because people can't be bothered to seat this seal properly on the outside. The lights back in, make sure you're using the right washers. These big ones here with a little washer on top and then an 8mm nut, and when you're tightening them up, tighten them up in a cross, there we go, cross pattern. So that one first, then that one down there, then that one, and then this one, and then finally the end one here. Don't just tighten one nut up first, otherwise you'll pull the light out of kilter and you'll end up leaking through that back light. These nuts up, you do not need to over tighten them. This particular light has got a new rear seal on it, and the seal is very springy and spongy. You don't want to over compress the seal. Socket into these holes here to tighten up the nuts, and they can be a bit tricky. So what I do is I just use a socket on the end of a screwdriver like that. You can use a little bit of blue tack to stick it on there, or a bit of electrical tapes, and that will fit through there nicely. A washer and a nut onto there is extremely fiddly, and the easiest way I've found is to take off this panel here, which is for the vacuum locking if your car has one. That way at least you can get your hand inside this little hatch here. You might find that your socket is too deep to tighten those nuts up properly. If so, just put a bit of cardboard or something down there, and then you'll be able to tighten them up properly. The rear chrome seal in, we can set about gluing in the boot seal. It's an awful lot easier to do that rear chrome seal if you haven't got a boot seal in. So tomorrow we're going to have a go at gluing in this boot seal. It's a bit tricky, as all things seem to be, but as I say, it's a lot easier doing that seal there before you put in the boot seal. So to get the rear lights and the rear boot chrome in, you're going to need a new bag of M5 nuts, and also some corresponding washers. What you've got to do is connect up the number plate lights, and before you do it, there's a live wire coming from the back light, is just to test that the brown is actually positive and that is actually negative. So just put a voltmeter on there with the red on there and the black on there, and make sure it comes out as plus 12 volts, not minus 12 volts. The first time I did it, it was minus 12 volts, which means that the plug on the other end of the light is wired the wrong way. So just unclip the plug, change the wires around just so that the brown is always showing as positive. Okay, we've just put a little connector like that. Ideally you should have a little Mercedes plug in there so you can just unplug them, but we don't have a spare one. We're just going to turn the back lights on and see if the number plate lights come on, and if they do, it's wired up correctly, and if there's a little pop, it means they're wired back to the distinctive pop of a fuse going, which means that the wires out of the number plate light are back to front. But I'm going to leave them back to front because I would have to take this entire section out again to redo it. That's probably why those wires were back to front originally, but I'm going to leave these wires with plus being brown and blue and just swap them around over here. The right hand light is fuse number 13, And on the photo you can see that that fuse is the one that's blown, so we're just going to pop a new fuse in there. If you are changing fuses in your SL, make sure you use ceramic brass fuses. This car's had no end of problems, electrical problems, basically because the fuses were old, and these fuses here give a much better electrical contact. So let's just go and pop the light switch. The rear lights are working, and more importantly, the number plate lights are working.